Good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about servant leadership versus secular leadership, and also a little bit about shepherding leadership as well. There are two primary factors that separate servant leaders from secular leaders: humility and their source of authority. First and foremost, servant leaders recognize that the source of their authority comes from God, not themselves. This is actually a very significant part of what it means to be a servant leader, because there's a mental shift from authority to accountability, meaning that instead of having the mentality of I'm in charge, a servant leader has the mentality that God is in charge and I am therefore accountable to Him. This leads to humility and submitting to the authority of God's law. From this humility comes the servant's heart that leads to the desire to not only lead, but to also serve and work side by side with those he or she is leading. A servant leader is willing to lead by example and doesn't view himself or herself above performing any task he or she is asking his or her team to do. A servant leader will go first and perform a task, not to boast, but to teach and to serve. Secular leaders, on the other hand, tend to lead with the mindset of having full authority. I think we have all experienced this type of leadership in our lives. The person in charge has the mindset of what I say goes because I am the boss and you have to do what I say. Because secular leaders are ultimately only accountable to themselves, they tend to express their authority in a way that displays their power and role. It is easy to be in the mindset of how can others serve me and how can I profit from this situation. I think that it is only right, however, to mention that not all secular leaders are bad leaders or are completely focused on themselves and have no regard for others. There are secular leaders that want to do good in the world and want to build up and teach those that they lead. And the difference is what drives them to do what they do. Similar to servant leaders, leading as a shepherd is highly focused on the people one is leading. This leadership focuses on taking care of and building up others, as well as forming a trusting relationship with them. Correction is rooted in love for them rather than anger or disappointment. Leading as a shepherd also has a heavy emphasis of leading by example, similar to servant leadership. I think the biggest way that servant leadership and shepherd leadership can be used in business practices today is by focusing on where authority comes from, as well as focusing on the people we are leading. I think that by keeping God as a source of our authority, we feel accountability that leads us to work with integrity, not waste time, and continuously work hard. By focusing on the people we are leading, we train others to do something by example and being encouraging to them. Furthermore, leading by example builds trust and respect that makes others more willing to accept our authority and do what we ask them to do. I'm going to respect and trust my manager a whole lot more if he or she is willing to take time to show me how to do something the right way and put in an obvious effort to show me how to do it, rather than if he or she just gives me a book to read or briefly tells me how to do something. Thank you.